Work sessions are an opportunity for board members to discuss issues informally with staff and invited guests. The board encourages members of the public to attend work sessions, listen to discussions. There is generally no opportunity for public comment. Members of the board wishing to address the board are welcome to do so during the board's regularly scheduled meeting. Today's topic is short-term rentals. And we have a handout here. We also received information on this. And I'll turn to the lead staff.
Yeah, let me just kick this off, and then, well, Heather and Heather are here, so we got the Heather and Heather show. You may recall that this was an issue that we discussed with the board, made a presentation several months ago, and really it was a concern more about safety in terms of short-term rentals in the county. And you know, the nod we got was, yes, probably something we should look at. And so we've gone back, done some research. And this is kind of what the current thinking represents from staff. And so I think Heather's going to kind of walk us through what we're looking at here, and you tell us whether we're on track or not.
So the ordinance is, of course, much longer than the bullet points, but the summary is on the first page and a half. And the goal here was to focus on safety, both for the community and the people that are in the homes, to the extent that would impact the community. I will say Tillamook County has a short-term rental ordinance. Lincoln County, I believe, has one. Lincoln County's doesn't have the house safety requirements. It focuses on the neighborhood safety, like you have to have a garbage can, so that there's no vermin running around and that sort of thing. So every county counties that have a lot of short-term rentals are all facing this right now, and everybody seems to be doing a little bit different thing. I know a lot of cities in this county are a lot more focused on what I call zoning issues. And what Heather and I had talked about, I want something, I think it's the best for the county to have something that applies countywide and rules that are applicable for safety countywide. And then if we care about how many cars, beyond what the standard limit is, which is one per bedroom, I believe, is, in some of the zones, like Arch Cape, they want it a lot more restrictive than that. That can be done as a zoning issue and go in the zoning code. But this would go in the general county ordinance and the county code. We already have a transient room tax where we charge people. This of course only applies outside of city limits. It doesn't apply inside city limits. We already have a transient room tax, so of course we want that paid. We already have an ordinance that requires quiet from 10 to 7, so this is just restating what's already of law. We did ask that the owner put a sign by the door of sort of some of the basic rules, how to get a hold of the owner, any parking constraints, where the garbage goes, in part because that impacts the neighborhood, in part because it impacts public safety people when they have to respond to an ambulance call and the people there don't know the address, and in part for their own convenience to know who their landlord is. Also wanted the landlord to give notice to the people 100 feet on either side. You can pick any distance you want. 100 seems to be fairly standard. Some of the houses out that are rented in Elderberry, Jewel, there may not be somebody 100 feet, but just so that if there's a loud party that's disturbing their peace, they can deal with, they can let the owner know. Garbage, of course, we've talked about. And then
so garbage, having a secure garbage can is lovely, But if it's overflowing out onto the street,
Yeah, the main thing here was the weekly service and requiring them to have a garbage pickup rather than just leave it there till,
What about putting the garbage can back to where it's supposed to be rather than leaving it out by the street?
well, but the
Who's
problem is
responsible for
it's
that?
overflowing.
Well, that's a
It is.
problem.
Yeah, I think-
Another problem is that.
we can probably address
I have a number
that,
of questions.
you know, garbage
Yeah, so
should
do
be
I.
in a secure
At the end, I
container as
think.
opposed to outside.
All garbage.
Secure container.
how do you want me to just go through what the points are and then
I've read
discuss
it.
it?
I've read it, I've made notes now,
Oh, okay.
but
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah, whatever makes.
But
you
on
feel
the first page, the one fire extinguisher, is that per square foot of the, I mean, is that, if it's a gigantic house, do they have to have more than one fire extinguisher?
Not under this, no. We
I
tried to
mean, how
make
do they
it,
do that normally?
You know, like my shop, it's square footage, and it has to be, I have two, and they have to be a certain distance from the door and a visible location.
and it depends how rigorous you want to be.
I want to be rigorous.
If it's your private home, obviously, and you aren't renting it out, you don't have to have a fire extinguisher
Yeah,
at
but
all.
we're not
So-
talking about private homes, we're talking about rentals.
These
So
are
it's
No,
drawing-
no, wait a minute. Yeah, I've been looking at this issue a lot, not in the county, but in Gerhart. These are homes, a lot of them, of people who rent them out in order to
No, I
use
understand.
them. So it's not just a rental. Now, maybe some of them are, but a lot of them are their homes.
But do you have a problem with having more than one fire extinguisher if it's a large home?
Not that,
Okay.
I just wanted to
Then maybe we have
clarify
something
that.
in there about square footage.
Or per floor maybe, or?
I don't know, what does the fire department
Well,
think?
the way I look at it, it's a commercial activity, so I understand it's a home, but it's being used for a commercial activity, because I really appreciate that. You don't want to have unreasonable standards. But if it's being used for a commercial activity, then that shifts it in my mind from being just a home to being a business. And if you've got requirements as a business that you have to observe, it seems
They also
fair.
have to be tagged and inspected.
It should be a
Well,
Okay, yeah.
let's look and see, because I don't know what those are now. Let's see what the requirements are if it's just a home, and they probably should be the same.
Money from it.
So, but if we're sticking with the fireplaces, and those things have to be properly installed and vented, those are also inspected.
That's
also.
normal anyway, I mean, that's
I know, but
code,
it's
right?
not listed, that's why I'm
Right.
wondering.
Okay,
But unfortunately,
That's
a
all
lot
I'm
of people
saying.
don't follow code.
okay.
No, I
Just-
think the apartments might be a good guide for
Yeah, that's true.
rental houses.
Because
certain things.
my sister has, rents out cabins to hunters, and they have fireplaces, and it was very strict about what they could do and what they could do.
I have a question. So, in the county codes, do we allow in-home occupations?
What do you mean by that? You mean like having a business at home?
Yeah, like maybe,
Yeah, it's a home occupation, there's a lot, depending on the zone, like say a bed and breakfast, which is kind
not
of similar.
necessarily,
No, but I
like
mean,
maybe a
but-
dentist or a, you
Yeah.
know, an accountant or,
Yeah,
yes, all of that.
there's some.
Is that
the-
allowed?
The more, yes, but the more impact it might have in the neighborhood, the more review there is, like some of them actually have to go to the planning commission. So you could put, like it would be a conditional use permit, because you want to make sure, you might limit the hours of operation, or, you know, deliveries, that kind of thing.
So what I'm getting at is, you're calling this a business, okay? I'm running into this in Gerhart,
Yeah.
and what I'm seeing is the people who, now, it could be different than what we have in the county, but these people are being totally marginalized. It's like they're just making all this money, and that's all they care about, and they don't care about the city, and they don't care about, you know,
Yeah.
complying with anything. And yet, we allow in-home occupations. They are not,
Not
they are
employees.
not held to this standard,
Right, but-
as strict of a standard.
But if you have a business that you're running, you're not having people sleeping there. It's a little different, and we're definitely not using Gearhart as a model.
Good.
Nope, we're not going in that direction. I mean, that was pretty clear, you know, from.
Well, I'm just addressing that distinction, just like what I brought up before, you know, if it's renting a house is just a business, no, it can also be a family home.
Right.
And this issue about, well, again, it's it's a business, or I mean, it's a short-term rental, so it has to be stricter. I want to make it reasonable.
Right. Well, one of the,
Yeah, I think
I
we all
don't
do.
think so.
Are all short-term rentals possible in all zones? Or are
The
there any
only-
differences in the zones?
the only zone where they're actually regulated right now is in the Arch Cape area. And they actually have strict, not strict, but they have standards like of how many nights you could rent it out and that kind of thing. So we were going to not weaken that because that would really upset people. I mean,
You don't want to do that.
yeah, but, so that, we would address that through the zoning code. We would keep it in there, you know, it limits.
What do you mean, you'd have one rule for Arch Cape and another rule for?
No, because
the
these
rest
rules
of the
don't address, like, this doesn't propose any limits on the amount of time that you can rent it out.
Right now, we have rules for Arch Cape and nowhere else in the county. So Arch Cape is treated differently as far as their short-term rentals than anywhere else. And Arch Cape isn't actually totally defined except on the zoning map, which is difficult for,
There's an overlay district.
Well,
so it is.
do we want to do a countywide ordinance?
I want
That's-
this to
that's
be
kinda being too-
countywide.
Yeah,
This
this
is
is
countywide.
countywide.
We have people in Jewel who, you know, are renting their homes
Yeah, that
out,
makes
We have
and
people
some of
here
them are
in all the
unsafe.
cities
We have
also.
people in the Clatsop Plains who, you saw
No, no,
pictures of the
yeah.
fire and so on. And so it's the safety, and this would go probably in the building or the nuisance code. It would go in the general code of the county, not the land use code. It would not be enacted as a land use matter. It would be enacted as a safety matter.
And I think it is about safety. Cannon Beach has time limits similar to what Arch Cape has, so it's not unheard of in the county. It's just that in the unincorporated areas, it's not, it hasn't been, we haven't had protections. And so when stuff happens, the question is, where do we go for enforcement? Because, you know, when they're setting off 10 bottle rockets at, 10 o'clock at night, who's going to come? And it's probably the sheriff.
Right.
And just one clarification, Sarah, that at the last time we were talking about this really, what's different about renting your house out when you're not actually present is the people renting it aren't familiar with the house like you are. So, the example I gave when I rented a place, it was a cabin and it was a sleeping loft and I needed to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night and I'm standing there at the top of the stairs. There was barely a railing. I didn't know where the light switch was. It's dangerous.
I
But
understand.
I have a friend who
if
was
it's your own
permanently injured
place-
because of the exact same situation.
Yeah, if it's your own place, you're like, oh, yeah, that's right, the light switch is in between the bookshelves or something, it's that kind of.
Or, yeah, that third step shorter than the other one.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so what if the homeowner is there
Then,
and they're renting out a
Then they're-
bedroom?
then they're
That's different.
B&B, all right?
Then do they have different
no,
codes?
we talked about this at staff. We're not addressing that scenario where it's
So are
like
they
a-
exempt?
Or someone's renting out a bedroom or something
Yeah,
like
no.
that.
So that's exempt.
So
Well, so
Airbnbs
far.
are, see, I think this is such a complicated and impending problem that we're gonna have to have more than one work session on it. I mean, it's just huge.
I mean,
Huge.
B&Bs are addressed by statute, so that's
Yeah,
fine. But
But
if you're
Airbnb
doing
is
Airbnb and just renting out a bedroom, that is different.
Okay.
And
This
you can
doesn't
tell
cover
me what you
And
want,
what
but I had
about,
envisioned this as
accessible
being you're
dwelling
renting out
Fine,
the whole house.
I'm just asking, I'm
Right.
not,
What about accessible
just wanna
dwelling
know.
units? Are we gonna?
the ADUs,
Yeah.
that would be like you could
What
rent
is
it out
that?
as a vacation rental, accessory
Those
dwelling
little-
units
those
that are
little
oh,
allowed.
accessory,
in
oh,
zones,
like
yeah.
a tiny house thing, yeah.
Well, kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
Like right now, you can rent those out.
Can be any size.
So I assume it would include those because
So if you had forest land, you could just plop it on there, if the zones don't matter, you could fill your
No.
forest
No,
land.
no.
See, that's what I mean, that's what I'm talking about.
No, you
It's
can't.
like, how do we know these things?
The
What's
zoning controls what goes in the area. This is only to control
The actual
how
building.
safe it is for people that are in there. Just like we already have building code regulations, we already have regulations that you have to be quiet throughout the county
Right, right.
between 10 and 7. This would apply countywide for anybody who's going to rent out their entire home to somebody.
But actually, Heather, that's a good point.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what I understood.
And here's the other thing.
There's more
I've
here,
got a
though, than
concern-
And then you
safety.
go through and do in the zoning code whatever other restrictions.
Yeah, like we would have to verify that it's a legal dwelling unit, first of all, to be rented out.
But I've got a constituent who is red hot on this shit. I have a stack this high of printed material, and I'm getting a lot of information, it's happening in Seaside. It's a huge issue that's only gathering, it's like a tsunami, it's been
Yeah.
slow, but it's relentless.
And people are very upset.
On all sides of
On
it.
both sides, on all sides, yes.
Yeah,
Right.
no doubt about it.
Because it affects the workforce housing availability.
So I'm
too.
glad we're talking about it. 'cause
Affects
that's
a
good.
lot of things.
Is there gonna be a maximum limit of how many of these homes can be rental occupants? And, I'm sorry, I'm mixing this up.
I don't
That
think,
wasn't anything.
I
we
don't
looked
think
at.
there should be at
In
this
Seaside,
point.
So she's the last remaining house in
Yeah.
the neighborhood.
Yeah,
Everything else is gone this way.
if you want to
Wow.
hear
She's
about.
$10,000 away from paying for a house.
Yeah.
And she's on vacation row,
Yeah,
which is not what she bought into.
yeah, and all I'm saying
This
is.
is
if
in
you want-
Seaside?
If you want to hear about Airbnb and all of that, I've got a constituent who would be delighted to give you all the information you could possibly want to have, because the Oregon, Oregon Restaurant and Lodging
Oh, yeah,
Association.
they're hot on this.
They're on this because there's a distinction sometimes between the restaurant owners who make money no matter who's renting the sleeping arrangements, and the lodging people who are following certain rules and regulations and reporting requirements and auditing and all of that kind of stuff to make sure that they pay their taxes properly, and online stuff. And the issue that came up in Seaside, where Seaside signed a contract where they agreed to audit only ever so often instead of all the time about this, is her concern, because the lodging people who, like the regular, your kind of thing,
Hospitality.
thank you, the hospitality folk are held accountable to a stricter standard. Well, yeah, and so when we're talking about fairness and we're talking about business operations, I mean, it's a really good conversation to have, but it's really complicated, and it's gonna take a while and a lot of data to look at and a lot of options and outcomes. So this is great that we're doing this.
Well, and I think, this is kind of an extension of this maybe, but, and Kathleen raised a question about, accessory dwelling units and other things, but hopefully, we're going to maybe be able to move forward on some kind of countywide housing study. And if you look at the Tillamook study, I mean, they address some of those kind of issues, as these are some ways in which, you can address your housing issue, if you choose to do that. So I mean, I think we'll get into this issue even in a broader sense than this, hopefully as we move forward and try to come up with a countywide strategy on addressing our housing needs.
Well, the other thing too is I don't think any of this is gonna fly unless we have some people that are gonna be to inspect. And my understanding is there's quite a shortage of inspectors, the time to be able to get out and do that. And do we need to plan for that in the budget that we have not yet approved? Another position for inspectors?
Now, wait a
Well, there
minute.
would be a fee.
Okay, so it has to be a county inspector?
Well, the way it was, I think the way that it's written, it would be a county inspector, because who is inspecting in Arch Cape right now are the kind of people that do home inspections when you're gonna buy a house. They don't go into the detail that a building inspector would.
This is set up for the county building official to do the inspection when you first apply and then every 5 years after that.
So between you apply and 5 years, there could be a lot of problems.
Yeah, and
could.
it's your
How's
board's
that gonna be
decision
addressed?
how often you want
might
to
wanna-
have that.
Might not want to wait 5 years.
You may not want to
Why
wait
wouldn't you
5
do it
years.
every year?
No,
Why?
Because there's a cost associated
way
cost.
too.
with it.
It's
But
too
if you're making
cumbersome.
lots of, look, I get letters from these folks all the time offering, hey, Leanne, you could have all this money, you got a 2-bedroom house, we'll give you, I think it was $37,000 a year.
That doesn't matter.
Well, it
Everybody
does.
gets those in the
No,
whole
no,
county.
I got it, but what we're talking about is people have a certain profit margin, and so part of your cost of doing business is to pay for those inspections.
You cannot count.
Well, yeah. we
That's, they're
can.
gonna sell it, no, they sell it to you as saying you're gonna make all this money. That is not, we shouldn't even think about
All
that.
I'm saying is, it's part of the cost of doing business for legitimately
Yes, but-
regulated.
okay.
And if these people are making money from it, no matter how much or how little it is, in the interest of public safety, it's part of the cost of doing, I mean, you pay for safety inspections.
Well, there's
on your
a
restaurant.
wide range, I think, of people that are entering into this market. They're owner occupied. There are people that are there 3 months out of the year, not 9 months. There are people that are just buying multiple homes as investments
Right.
and are just running them
Running-
out
it's
and
like a
running them into the
hotel.
ground.
Yeah.
And I think if we're gonna do a countywide ordinance, I think we at least need to talk about this. Not everybody is legitimate.
But you
You
can't
know?
discriminate if they follow the right channels. It has to be
Right.
whoever comes, no matter what their intent, they follow the proper procedure.
If we were to require for every short-term rental in the county to have an inspection every year, is that even doable? Would we have to then hire
with current
on?
staff.
Yeah, that's,
I
Would
mean,
they
you'd
be
have to
paying-
get charged sufficient to
Right,
hire
right.
another staff person.
And they wouldn't do it all at the same.
But it's,
Month.
it's on me to say when I need my fire extinguishers inspected. There's a little tag on them, tells me when it's up, it's every 5 years. And it's every 5 years, it's not a year. They come every 5 years, because that's how long it's good for. And it's up to me to call and say, oh, wow, looks like my time's coming and now I gotta do that. I mean, there's just certain things you
Right,
have
or
to do,
if
and it's on you.
they're there, unless somebody removed it.
Will come out for free and
Yeah.
tag your fire extinguisher.
Yeah.
You know, I get the thing, I think, you know, yearly, but I think that within the confines of this ordinance looks good to me. And I think that, you know, remember, we can always change it in 2 or 3 years down the road. And also, it's a good start. And I think just the fact that when we get the inspection, that, permit renewed annually, the inspection every work required every 5 years, well, you know, in 5 years, we can change that.
well, there's other things on here though too, I'd like
Yeah, there are a lot of
to.
other
Well,
things on there
absolutely, I
too.
mean,
Okay.
not each.
This is not
around,
over
that's fine.
Okay,
Well, you know, an employee has a probationary status, so it might be okay after a while if somebody's got a good track record of complying to stretch it out, but I'm not sure that it's a good idea to do it immediately from the beginning to assume everything is fine and will remain fine, because maybe people need feedback. It's not just a punitive thing.
Well, and you still, even if someone has done a good job and comply, if we're treating people differently,
They
we
have
open
to be-
ourselves up.
It has to be
What about the
consistent.
public health department? Do these kitchens get inspected? Do the refrigerators get inspected?
Well, there's
Do
the
they
considered
have,
single
do they have
family
hot, I
homes
mean,
for
that the whole
non-
world.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
We get inspected all the time. If there's a hot
But
tub,
these
it has
are-
to be inspected.
These are single
But-
family.
Basically, public
Are they-
health's
are they
role
all?
in this
that-
would be the septic systems.
I mean, I know they.
Because the
yeah,
kitchens are
that's
not
a big
commercial
problem.
kitchens, they're
That's
not
a big
licensed
problem.
commercial kitchens.
But
You
that,
cannot hold them to the same standard.
But that's what we're talking about, is that there is a gray area. There's a
Yeah.
strictly private home and there's a strictly business. And we've got this gray area in the middle where what has been a private home, or might still be part of the time of private home, is also part of the time a business. So how do we balance the business activity with the home, you know, how do we manage the status and keep the public safe? Because, yeah, I don't want them coming to my house to check my refrigerator, but I don't rent my house out. So if I were, would that be valid?
No.
I don't
I'm
know.
totally against that.
Yeah, it's a.
I don't know. I've worked with the public a long time. I mean, there are reasons why there are regulations.
I'm not saying there shouldn't be regulations, but I don't think we should go to the most extreme to begin with.
I'm just trying to talk about it. I'm not trying to go
Right, right.
extreme
Yeah.
one
Okay.
side or the other. I'm just
All right.
asking
Yeah,
questions.
again,
Okay,
that,
okay.
that may be an option we
Okay.
get to at some
Good
point,
to ask
if we feel it's necessary.
You know, like, are we gonna have a maximum limit on how many people can be in a house? And in this, when we, on the page where it's talking about problems, you know, they're trying to, reduce the rate, is there wedding parties or family reunions?
114,
Yeah,
maximum
it's,
occupancy is 3.
Item 14 on the
There
summary.
used to be 2, and it says 3 plus 2 more per bedroom. That's a lot of people.
Not necessarily, it depends.
Yeah, it does, but I mean, I think that's something we
And
should talk
then,
about.
yeah, and also, some Arch Cape will have a more restrictive thing, some of the other zones may want to. This would be the countywide minimum, I guess you'd say, or maximum, I guess is what I want to say, yeah, maximum. And then if it's a zoning requirement, you can put it in there. So this would be what applied throughout the whole county.
Where it says, let's see, which is the one that talks about children, 2 years,
It's down here.
14, okay. Is 3 persons over age 2. Well, what about a child that's 6? I mean, I don't quite understand. Okay, why is the age of 2? What is the rationale for that?
I believe they would be still in a cot at that age or a crib,
Crib.
and then they'd go into a regular bed when they hit 2, is at least when my kid went into a regular
Okay,
bed.
so the idea is that this is being regulated so that everybody has a bed to sleep in? Or what's, I'm just trying to understand what the rationale is about that.
So that the number of people in the home is somewhat proportional to the number of beds.
Well, suppose you have, you know, a giant room with 4 beds. I mean, I don't know. I know
Then
these.
you have, then it's kind of by beds, right, for sleeping area, so it's gotta be kind of, I think they do count it by beds. We just
No,
stayed
it's
in a
by
private-
bedroom.
We just stayed and we rented 3 VRBO homes for our track team, and one of them had maximum occupancy of 16, and there were 4 sets of bunk beds in one room, which was amazing for us, plus we threw
Right.
kids on.
And we could,
sleeping
So that would
spots,
not
so
work in
that
this.
would not work.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, my
That's what they
family,
did in Sunday.
when my family rented Fort Columbia, there's a big house that has, you know, the couches become, the futons become beds at night, so.
Right, so this would not allow any
That's
of
the
that.
+2.
so, we can look at the different, I mean, I think the general idea was to try and put some sort of limit on how many people total are there, but you
Okay.
can't do that on a, I mean, you can do it on per square basis, you can, you
Yeah,
know,
it depends
lots
on-
of different
probably it
standards.
depends on the size of the home.
Well, it depends on how it's
So I can
configured.
look at some different standards
You
and
can have
see
a
if
really
there's
big
some other
home with
ones
one
that
bedroom.
would be more suitable.
I just want the garbage inside the garbage cans, please.
Yeah.
No, I really.
No,
That's a big
You know what? I have more problems with garbage on our street from people who are not short-term. It's the people who live there. Now, that might not be true where you are, but it's
Standard
true where I
residential
am.
enclosures, but it's all, there's so many rentals there. And they all have these little enclosures, and then it tells you that you're supposed to take the garbage to the recycling center, and we're out of town, and then the garbage comes on Wednesday. Well, we got there, 20 homes in the garbage was full, it wasn't long enough, so I texted the owner and said that garbage was like, oh, I'm so sorry, we were just there. The owner, so it was like, it's always fine when the renters are there, but the owner comes in, it's like,
And
oh,
that's-
we got your garbage.
And
sorry."
actually, I am seeing that. I'm really watching this more now in Gearhart, and I am seeing this.
So we should have community
People.
standards? No, but, well, what we're talking about is community
Well,
standards.
nobody's supposed to have their garbage on the street. I mean,
You
are
would
they?
think, But how do we see about that? Because
Yeah.
what we're talking is really a livability issue as well as safety.
Well, are there
That's what we're getting
codes
into.
in the county that cover garbage?
We
Oh.
don't have countywide garbage.
Oh, well, there definitely needs to be that.
We do that,
Yeah,
please.
I didn't realize that. Gearhart has that.
Heather, do you think the use of the term sleeping area instead of bedroom was intended to include